Hello, I'm Mike Rosman, CEO of BoeFly, and I appreciate you investing your time to join us today. For the past 15 years, BoeFly has been focused on helping franchisors and franchisees accelerate growth. For franchisors, this means establishing the most efficient way to diligence new franchisees. And for franchisees, this means efficiently securing financing to open and expand, both through SBA and conventional financing. There's one thing we've learned in working in franchising, and that's time kills deals. And that's why we're always looking for ways to accelerate the franchise sales process, which leads us to why we're here today. We brought together two amazing franchisors to share their perspective on how they're using their partnership with two trusted partners, Spadea Law and BoeFly, to accelerate the sales process, increase efficiency while also reducing risk. We'll get to meet them shortly, but some quick housekeeping items. We are recording this session and we'll share a copy with you if you want to share it with any colleagues or review any of the information we covered today. Our goal is to make it interactive. So if you have any questions, please chat them in and we'll get to them during the session or we'll loop back if we run out of time. And in the spirit of making things interactive, we'd like to start with a quick poll question, really to get an insight into the size of the brands that are on this session today. So we're going to go ahead and launch that. And would love you to go ahead and answer the question. Describe your brand for you franchisors. Are you 0 to 10 units, 11 to 25, 26 to 50, 51 to 100, or greater than 100? And really, this will help us be able to direct our conversation towards what type of size brands we're working with. And for you suppliers who join, we're always happy to have you here, but you can go back and hold off on answering. Um, I'll ask Tom, do we see the results yet, or you guys don't see it published yet?
I do not see them
All
published.
right, I'm going to go ahead and it seems like the majority have responded. I'm going to go ahead and share the results.
Oh, I do
And it
see it.
looks like the majority of brands that are on are greater than 100. Um, but then we also have some emerging brands as well. We've 17% are in that under 10 category, and so a good distribution of size of brands. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing that and really get into our conversation today. Um, I'd love to start by meeting the franchisors that are on. So we have, I'll start with you, Victoria, with Canine Resorts. Tell us a little bit about yourself and also about your brand.
My name is Victoria Lucas. I have been with Canine Resorts for 2.5 years. I am currently the in-house counsel here. I went to Northeastern University for law school, Loyola University for undergrad, where I studied developmental economics. I have a background in business and commercial law, and I've worked in both the private and public sectors. Um, Huge dog fan, huge sport fan. So very happy to be at a place that also loves dogs. Do you want me to talk about Canine Resorts now as well, really quick?
Yeah, I'd love to hear. Yeah, tell us about the
Okay,
brand.
great. So Canine Resorts is a luxury dog daycare and boarding facility. I obviously work for the franchisor. We currently have 48 open units. We are very excited to announce that we're opening our 50th unit early June. And then in the second half of this year, we should open about 15 additional units. So very, very exciting second half of 2026 for us. And obviously, we're always looking for animal lovers, big animal lovers. And right now, we're making a strategic push to look for franchisees who have backgrounds in both the childcare industry and then also the hospitality industry because of the close overlap between those two company types and how we run our business here.
Awesome. And I think we're really going to tap into your experience as in-house counsel and really understanding how you leverage the solutions closely. So thank you very much for investing your time, Victoria.
Happy.
And Jacqui, Juno, with Heritage Brands, a couple brands under the umbrella. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the brands.
Yes, definitely. So my name is Jacqui Juno, and I've been with Heritage Restaurant Brands for almost 9 years this year. I specialize in the compliance and business processes for Heritage Restaurant Brands and our franchisees. I am also certified in human resources, so I bring a strong HR perspective to all facets of our organization. And then our company, Heritage Restaurant Brands, we franchise 3 different restaurant concepts. We have Perco's Cafe Grill, Huckleberry's Breakfast and Lunch, and our newest brand is Press Quesadilla Grill. We have 35 Huckleberries and 6 Percos, and then our newest brand, we have over 30 locations currently signed and ready to go and in different parts of the development phase.
Awesome. Super exciting. And we're thrilled to have you on as well. Tom Spadea, I'm excited to have you on. I know we've known each other for years. The fact that you still, were able to spend time with me, I appreciate very much. Tell us about your background, Tom, but also about the firm.
Yeah. So Tom Spadea, I'm a franchise attorney. I've been in the franchising space for, close to 25 years or so. Not always as an attorney. I actually started life in this world as kind of a franchise and business broker. And then I worked for like a 300 unit brand in franchise development. So I, from when a lead came in up until they opened. So, and I went to law school at night. So I got my law degree while I was selling franchises during the day. Started the firm 14 years ago. First couple of years we focused, well, when you start any business, we focused on anybody that would write us a check. And so there was a lot of franchisees. We did a lot of leases. We did a lot of FDD reviews. Over, I'd say, like the last 8 or 9 years, we've transitioned our practice to really focusing on franchisors because I sat in the development seat. I understand the process. Love what you said, Mike. Time kills deals. I've said that many times. And so we've built some software and processes really behind compliance because we're focused on helping brands think about the long-term exit. And so what does that due diligence look like? What do those FDD receipts look like? What do those controls around state registrations need to look like? All the boring blocking and tackling that if you're doing it right, you're not thinking about it. And if you're doing it wrong, it's a real pain point down the road. So we represent a few hundred brands of all sizes, from people who are starting into the business up until, multi-hundred units. Many brands have, in-house counsel. And so we kind of work very well with the compliance department to just try to make things smooth. But it's a great business. I love franchising.
Awesome. And Nancy Broudo, my colleague at BoeFly, tell us a little bit about yourself and also share a little bit more about BoeFly too.
Sure. Well, thanks, Mike. Not unlike Tom, I started my career in franchise development. I worked for 2 automotive concepts in development and in finance, again, managing the candidate from the moment someone in sales spoke to them until they opened and all the iterations throughout. Then I became an SBA lender, which really gave me an understanding of not just the lending and the SBA process, but looking at brands in a more in-depth perspective. And then I took all of that, and I sometimes joke that my brain is sort of bifurcated and it understands the franchisor and the franchisee side. And I worked with Mike for about 10 years, and it allows me to bring that knowledge and that experience when talking to franchisors or lenders or franchisees. And at BoeFly, what we've done is create tools to help franchisees secure their financing and to help franchisors understand the financial profile of the candidate early stage, so that you understand if that candidate has the financial wherewithal to move forward and can open, and we can support that entire process. So for me personally, it's really fulfilling to see someone think about opening a franchise, and then 6, 8, 10, 12 months later, they're actually there. They have their financing in place, and we help support that process.
Thanks. Yeah, one of the nice things about franchising, as you said, is, we help brands grow, but you also build all these long relationships. I know you and I were just at a conference last week, the multi-unit conference, and you were running, and I saw you running a franchisors that you've worked with years and years, and now they're at different brands. And so these relationships are obviously such an exciting part of the work that we do too. So thank you, Nancy, for that. Tom, I want to get back to you and maybe talk a little bit more detail around how you guys are kind of behaving a little bit differently than maybe your average franchise attorney. One of the questions, I guess, you can't be a franchisor without having an FDD, right? That's kind of, table stakes. And so every franchisor has some legal relationship to establish that FDD. Could have been a trust and wills attorney who maybe built something. But you guys have taken a different perspective on it. Share us a little bit more about what you guys are up to, particularly within your special cat program.
Yeah. So what we've done is we've tried to just like really think about what you said, sort of the table stakes. What are the basics? What are the basic things that a franchisor really needs to accomplish? So we're looking at, we kind of pride ourselves as a law firm is obviously we want to be a trusted advisor, but at a basic level, the three things that we think people sometimes get irritated about law firms is like, how they bill, lack of transparency and lack of responsiveness. And we've sort of focused on building the firm around those pillars. And so one is how we bill is we typically, for this portion of the business, do a flat monthly fee. It's a subscription model, update the FDD every year, any material changes, register in all the states, and just are there for all of the compliance questions. So this person wants this addendum, is this going to have a short-term impact, a long-term impact? And so, when I was in franchise development and I would have the outside law firm, I'd ask a question, hey, can I put this in my Discovery Day PowerPoint? And then the CFO comes knocking on the door saying, hey, why'd we get a $400, question for a PowerPoint? And so I always had thought like, look, we need to make money. We need to build a fair pricing system. But so that's one thing that just takes it off the table. And then the other one is transparency. Trust builds transparency, or transparency builds trust. And I've always felt that, in my life and in my professional life. And so we have spent the last 8 or 9 years building a proprietary software that essentially serves up to the franchisor. They see what we see. We get the state registrations. We have a letter from a state. We have to respond, amount of comment letters, and are they registered? Are they not? And so we do that in like a very simplified way. I mean, it appears simple, but there's a big pyramid of work that's behind that. So our attorneys, our paralegals are managing these processes, and that just gives them full visibility. Our clients never have to know if they're registered, if they're not, because and then of course, the responsiveness piece of that is that it's always there. It's always available. They don't have to that question is always answered. And that level of speed is really important. And not just the compliance folks, but the salespeople, the development people, everybody in that chain of command doing a deal. It kind of keeps one version of the truth, everybody on the same page. And it started, another thing that when I think about our software, and actually probably the next slide, Mike, shows that is that when we've built this, when we build our CAP system, we originally were thinking like, someone who's really good at development might not be so great at paperwork, and somebody great at paperwork might not be so great at development. And so one of what I would say risk points is which FDD gets delivered. And so our original program was just very simple, Fogo de Chao style. Client sees state is red or green. The candidate clicks on the state, and the FDD that is sitting behind that link, it's a full DocuSign. Our team is managing that. So it's not a salesman who's uploading it and it's March 31st and did it expire in Maryland or something happened. That link is always the same, which, we'll get to the integration. And so that just takes away one of the potential failure points of knowing, there's a lot of great CRMs out there, but they're dependent on the development person actually putting the right FDD in there. And that can be a mistake. And the other thing that we do sort of a little different is it's the entire FDD. It's the entire complete FDD. So it's a DocuSign, the whole 250 pages. It has the footer. There is zero question 7 years from now when private equity goes to due diligence and they're matching up a full detailed receipt page to a signed franchise agreement, they can go back to these reports and see, okay, that state was registered. It was green. I can track that. I have a full FDD from all of the parties. And I know that, 14 days lapse. So we're trying to build the deal room in advance. It's much easier to build it that. And so once we get to that red or green, well, what drives that? Well, what drives that is that state expiring? We tell the clients starting at 90 days, hey, Minnesota's coming up. Do you guys want to re-register? And so it just gets everyone on the same page. And it's, and the clients really, really like it because it just kind of shines a light on something that sometimes can be mysterious. You're fishing through Word documents or spreadsheets and someone's manually tracking this stuff, and mistakes can happen when you're manually tracking.
Some clients like it, Tom, but maybe we should listen to a client and find out if they like it.
I think
Victoria,
that's right.
I'd love to chat with you about this here. So, in-house counsel, and so it sounds like Tom went to law school with this vision of becoming to get back into franchising or stay in franchising. Just curious, when you went to law school, were you thinking franchising just to get that sense?
Honest to God, when I went to law school, I didn't even know that franchising was its own unique subset of the law. And I don't think that I did know until a couple of years ago, well out of school. I studied business and commercial law, so I obviously knew that franchising had its own very unique, little niche underneath the business world. but I didn't know much about it. And when I came to Canine Resorts as in-house counsel, I came to provide business law acumen. So I wasn't overseeing a lot of our franchise stuff. I was basically asked to help out as needed and then to assist with the FDD. And I thought, how bad could that possibly be? It was bad my first year. You think that it's going to be so easy, but I came in and it was really difficult to learn that on the fly. So this program, really quick, I don't know if I have any Parks and Rec fans out there. I feel like Ron Swanson when I talk about the CAP program, okay? My endorsement doesn't come easy, but when it does come, it's loud and proud. I can't say enough good things about this program. I think Tom mentioned earlier some of the pain points he felt before he developed it, tracking those manual spreadsheets. That was me. We switched over to Spadea in September of 2025. So this is my first year filing our FDD with them, and what a different experience. This time last year, I was looking at an Excel spreadsheet that I had created, and I'm not very good at Excel, with all 50 states and going through the registration states versus the non-registration states and seeing if I'd gotten comments from regulators and then reaching out to my outside counsel saying, did you respond to this? Do I have to respond to this? What's the status of this one? Then I'd have my sales and development team knocking on my door. Well, do you know what's going on in Utah? Do you know what's going on in New York? When am I free to sell in Hawaii? I really want to sell in Hawaii. And now I don't have to deal with any of that. It's incredible. I can literally direct them to the CAP program. It is all for them to see. I get emails anytime there's a material change in any of our states. As I've been going through this FDD process, I get emails about the status, how far in the process we are. As of this morning, I'm 89% done or 85% done. It's incredible. I can't say enough good things about how much easier it has been from a administrative oversight point of view, especially for somebody that didn't have a great background in franchising. So I actually feel like I've been able to learn more since using this program because I get to spend more time, really in it and seeing the comments because now everything I can see myself too. I'm not relying on anybody else.
That's great. And I love the Ron Swanson reference. I'm going to go home and tell
Thank you, Victoria.
my 13-year-old, like, you won't believe what came up at work today.
All I want to talk about is Parks and Rec. So.
we love the Parks and Rec references. So I would like to go into a little bit more detail. So when I first got exposed to what the Spadea team has been doing, to me, it was, well, it's going to be a more controlled process of getting the FDD signed, which I think it is. But what you just talked about was the constructing of the FDD has really been a big improvement for you. So I want to spend a little bit more time on that. So in the last FDD round, before you were working with Spadea, you had outside counsel, and then
Yes.
you were playing the role of in-house counsel to go ahead and solve this. So, and this may be a little bit in the weeds, but I think this is probably where we're going to get some good information. So in the in-house counsel role, were you responsible for filing in those states, or did outside counsel do that on your behalf?
It was a 50-50 job. I was responsible for filling out all of the paperwork, making sure that the checks were generated, and then sending them off to my outside counsel.
Yep.
So it was a really convoluted process. Everything got sent. Some states got sent to them directly. Some states got sent to me directly. I had to fill out the paperwork, but then I sent it to my outside counsel to file on my behalf because I wanted them discussing with the regulators because that's what we pay them for, right? They're the ones that know what the regulators need to hear. But a lot of times because of that process where sometimes the information was coming from me, the regulators were calling me, or, I was getting emails saying, I need you to clarify X, Y, and Z. And it put me in a position where I honestly didn't know. And I also didn't know if it had already been done without me reaching out. Not to, disparage anybody, but you have no way of knowing in live time. Whereas now we have a program where in live time, I can see down to the minute when a response was filed. So a significantly different, easier, less stressful process.
That makes sense. And Jacqui, so in your role on the administration side, are you responsible for that FDD generation process with some of your colleagues?
Yes, so I am the primary like point person with Spadea, when we're updating
The
the
FDD hero, as we call it.
yes,
The
the
FD hero.
FDD
All right.
hero. I am that person. So I work directly with our team, with Jessica and Brianna and Hannah, and we work, they send me the drafts, months in advance, and we are like ready to go. They were actually waiting on me this year to submit the FDDs because we had some pending agreements waiting. So yeah, they're great.
Did you previously worked with a different approach, or were you always with the Spadea team since you've been there?
So since I've been here, we were previously working with different counsel. They weren't specialized in franchising, and so we wanted to make the switch to a partner that specialized specifically in franchising. And so the entire team there, I mean, they've helped us in all areas with our FDDs, our agreements, and even questions after the fact with franchisees that are coming back and have questions about their agreement later on, or you know, um, want to dispute something or something like that, they'll review our FDDs and help us with that as well.
That makes sense. And so, Tom, I trust there's still homework for the franchisor that your team will provide because the franchisor is the one who has, for instance, their financial reporting at the company level. And so, Tom, tell us the interaction between, I guess, from your perspective with the brand.
Well, like Jackie and Victoria said it, I mean, it becomes a team effort. And I think what the key thing that, like, in addition to, we have, thank you for the compliment on our great lawyers. We have great lawyers, subject matter experts. It's all we do. We go to, 2, 3 shows a year constantly. This is all our team does. But having that transparency, so everybody's looking at the same page. I think a lot of, before we had CAP, we've been doing this 14 years, you would have that issues. Did this get filed? Did that get filed? Someone has got to go back through your emails, or you're like, wait, item 8, I need to know that piece of that. Now what we do is we're just teeing everything up so that it's either they're working on them, working on us, or it's complete. And then this and fee deferrals is something that, like, a lot of our clients will end up having. You file, and this just brings it front and center. So the salesman's not collecting a check. It's all these little pieces. So it's not that we've changed the information flow, or, well, we've changed the information flow, but not the information. But we're very clear about, are we waiting on the information from the client, or is it in our lap, or is it sitting at the state? And just that very simple triangle solves 90% of the stress, because people know, like, okay, we're waiting on the state. You know what? We pinged them, they see that in the system. We know we're on top of it. So it's more of just wrangling all of this information together. I mean, we originally built this not even to share with clients. We built it just for our own sanity. You know, you take 100 clients in 14 registration states, you have all of a sudden 1,400 states that you're managing. There was no off-the-shelf software that could build this. So we built it so we could do a better job. And then we said, hey, what if we build on something here that's like a portal that then they can share? Similar to what we're doing now with you, Mike, is now we say the actual delivery of the FDD. It was sitting out there independent, which works. You can put it in a CRM, but we thought, boy, wouldn't it be great to pull that in? And I credit Mike, seeing this opportunity and saying, what if we married these things together? So everything that we're doing in the back end can now just be one link and seamless we've been recommending BoeFly for years for people to do that diligence. So it's more of it's the same information. You still got to deliver an FDD. You still need a receipt page. You still need to know, but now you can see it. So you shine a light on it, and it's that, trust gets built from transparency.
Great. And Nancy, in a minute, we're going to get towards that integration point. I think it's a great logical step, which Tom introduced us to transition to. But before we do, let's say I'm a franchisor, I'm listening in. And by the way, I encourage everyone who's on the line, if you have any questions, chat those in. We'll do our best to answer them currently or after the session. I'm a franchisor. I'm a 30-unit franchise brand. I've got counsel. I've worked with counsel. I'm loyal to counsel. They've been good to me. Talk to me about, like, do I retain my franchisor outside counsel because I still am going to have other matters to deal with, or is it what happens in that regard, and how does the transition work?
So, it's like you have your primary doctor and you have a specialist when you're having an issue. So we certainly can do the whole thing, which we do for many brands, but we also are totally fine to just carve it out. Look, we respect, I'm an attorney. I'm an attorney first. And I am never going to step on the toes of a relationship that you have trust, you've built it up over years, they understand. If there are sticking points, look, the best thing about paying them per hour and paying us per month is you can just keep picking up the phone and talking to them whenever. We're no problem to like customize our fee and lower our fee to just play in the sandbox. But why pay $600 or $800 an hour to go fight with Minnesota when our team can do it very efficiently? We probably file more state registrations than any other law firm because this is like it's a loss leader for many law firms, but it's our bread and butter. So we're totally respectful, even in the FDD process. If they're like, hey, we've had this counsel forever and we're a medical franchise, or we have all these, we have liquor licenses and they understand our business. So we want to put that language in the FDD. I have no pride of authorship. No problem. You want them to be included. Then Mike, make sure the chat is enabled, I think, as the host. It might be disabled. I just got a note from someone. So
Go ahead, please.
so yes, we're very happy to, like with Victoria, in-house counsel. We have many clients that have very big law firms. They've been with them for years. They're doing their M&A work. They're doing their corporate work, but we're handling the state registrations, the FDD update process, and we kind of stay in our lane. So happy to have that conversation for sure.
That makes sense. Before we go to Nancy, I do want to hop back to Victoria. As in-house counsel, do you have multiple relationships? Are there other law firms that you guys continue to work with outside of Spadea?
We do. I still maintain my relationship with our litigation specialist, which luckily we haven't had to use much. However, when we did make the switch over to Tom's team in September, it was a quick introduction email. We worked, one thing out together. Jessica Dempsey was the lead attorney as we oversaw that. She was phenomenal. Both firms worked really well together, kept me in the loop. Being in-house, I would say one of the biggest things here is I'm herding cats. I sit in between marketing, development, and operations. So I have to get a lot of people on the same page all the time. It is nice that a lot of people look at the law aspect and think that's going to be the most disharmonious or acrimonious part. It's actually the easiest for me so far. Tom's team has been nothing but great. Anytime I have a question that's really franchise niche, I send Jessica a text or email. She's so responsive, so kind, extremely helpful. So it's been great working with her. It's been great that she has maintained a relationship with our litigation specialists, and that I can trust, everybody to work together on the same team for the same goals.
So just very helpful. For the group, it sounds like the chat maybe isn't working because no doubt I did something wrong, but questions and answers are. So if you have a question for our attendees lob in a question, feel free to use that. And we do have a question about the role of integrating with CRM, which we'll talk about in a second. So Nancy, one of the things that Tom mentioned was, I do want to talk about the integration layer, but he also mentioned that he's recommended folks use BoeFly in that, I presume he means the diligence component. Tell us a little bit about, and I'll bring up a screenshot of what a bVerify report looks like, but tell us a little bit about that service and how our brand's using that now.
We created a diligence service specifically for franchisors so that early stage, and what you're looking at now that Mike just brought up, is the cover page of our report. So thinking about it as an executive summary that very clearly shows the candidate's liquidity, net worth verified. It's no longer a franchisor just asking someone to put something on a PFS. And sometimes PFS's financial statements are just a little aspirational, and this is actually verified. So what we're seeing is this beta candidate, we at BoeFly have confirmed that person's liquidity is $399. So it's liquidity, net worth, background, credit, and it is a soft credit inquiry, so it doesn't impact their credit score in any negative way. And we have a clear bankruptcy history. We have franchisors who are using this to diligence their candidates at some point in their sales process, pretty early stage. And what I've seen franchisors do, a couple things, is one, it allows you to put your resources someplace else instead of having to collect bank statements or that self-completed financial statement, which may or may not be completely accurate. It allows you to deploy your resources in a more productive way. It allows the franchisee candidate to complete this step in about 10 minutes. It's a link that's unique to the brand that the franchisee candidate goes through. Again, takes 10 minutes. And then 2 days later, the franchisor has the result. So it's really an efficient process. It, I think, gives comfort to the franchisee because they know that their peer group of franchisees that are moving forward with that brand are also being assessed, and they're joining a group that is equally strong and has the ability not just to open, but to stay open. It expedites the process. So there are numerous advantages to moving forward and how franchisors are using this. And I think what I've seen is franchisors, after they've deployed it, come back and said, how did I ever collect those bank statements? Or what was I thinking when I let someone email me a bank statement? It's not a safe way. So everything is really secure, really efficient, and allows you to think about your process in a more deliberate way. And what also occurs, it allows us at BoeFly, if this candidate needs financing, to talk with them, meeting them early stage when there's still runway in their deal, to address what may be a problem that can be solved because we've met them early. Did they know they had a delinquent car bill that was 90 days late, dragging down their credit score, excuse me. Or perhaps when I was a lender, I was working with somebody who had liquidity, but it was in a third country, it wasn't in the US. Had we known that early, we could have had it sit in the US for 90 days and cure it, as opposed to then he'd signed a lease, left his job. So again, there's a lot of opportunity to address situations, make the candidate stronger, and allow you as a franchisor to really know the financial wherewithal of your franchisee. And I will say one more thing. If you ask a candidate to do this and they don't, it's a sign that maybe they're not ready to move forward. And then again, not only are you deploying resources in the right way in terms of gathering information, but maybe it's somebody that doesn't have the bandwidth right now or the interest in moving forward, and you should put your efforts, your sales effort, into somebody else in your pipeline.
Jacqui, so you've been using bVerify, our diligence service, to go ahead and work with your franchise applicants. Give us your perception of this solution and how do you use it today?
Yeah, so we, Chip, our CFO, he met Mike at a conference, a franchise conference in Vegas quite a few years ago. And the approach that you guys take with taking everything in one application that our franchisees or potential franchisees can input their information, where it's not, they're sharing their statements or whatever statements they want to share, emailing it to us. It's all in one system that they can upload and then we can verify it. Where we're just not solely dependent on what they send us, where you guys check everything. And it gives us more time to spend with them and develop a relationship, and less time having to do the administrative of, oh, did you email that? Oh, we're missing this page, that sort of thing. So it's a great system that we use.
And so, Nancy, the last thing that Jacqui brought up, I think we hear a lot, is that kind of potentially high tension conversation of, I looked at your bank statements and I have more follow-up questions. Franchise sales really doesn't want to be in that role, and there's a whole lot of reasons why we wouldn't want them in that role. What are your thoughts on that, Nancy?
I think it's really important to understand that on the franchise sales side, you're in a sales capacity. You're in a conversation that says, and I've lived on that side, that says, join our family, sign a 10, 15-year agreement. And at the same time, while they know the candidate knows they have to be diligent, it can create some friction. But when they're using a third party, while the candidate knows that the information is going back to the brand, it allows us to gather that information and almost have like an invisible curtain between you and maintaining that sales relationship, dialogue, warm, friendly embrace, and allowing us to gather the information. And there are times where a candidate may not show everything they have. They may only show us the liquidity or the net worth that they feel they need to. And that's fine. We can very easily allow them to go back into the system, add some additional bank accounts or information, and send you an updated report. So it creates an opportunity for you to stay in that sales mode and BoeFly to stay in that diligence mode, but still gather you all the information that you need to make that appropriate sales decision.
So you mentioned that you would recommend brands take a look at it. Why do you think it's important for franchisors to take a look at and actually vet this information?
Well, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I've seen so many franchisors rise and fall, and people always ask, what's the number one thing a franchisor can do? And the biggest control factor is picking the right franchisees. And if you're an undercapitalized franchisee, or if you have some kind of issue with, those are the things that really trip up franchisors. The quality of your system is directly proportional to the quality of your franchisees. And so the ability to do it in a cost-effective manner, in a seamless manner, totally agree with Nancy, in a frictionless manner, where it's, hey, this is like a third party here, is just kind of coming in and validating. And it also like speaks to the professionalism of the franchisor, that you're asking people to join you and to follow a process in the system. So the more disciplined your process looks on the front end, the better you're actually showing your best foot forward as a franchisor. And so, if you have like just a SBA PFS that's been copied 50 times. It looks like, I'm old enough to remember like Xerox and the blue machines, where it's been like over and over and over done and people are filling it out. It just like, what does that say about your own level of professionalism versus saying like, look, we care enough about our system. And they're not only thinking about you're vetting me, but you're vetting my neighbors. And I'm making an investment in this brand, not just in my individual franchise. And so I want to make sure that the people sitting next to me and upholding that brand are also going through that process. So we get asked that question. And if we don't get asked, we volunteer it. We say, you need to be making sure that the people who join your brand are qualified to do it and they understand what they're getting into.
Great. Jacqui, I'll come back to you. So if I were one of your applicants and you're now asking me to go through this diligence process, do you hear much pushback from the applicants? What's the view that you're seeing firsthand when you work with franchise applicants?
No, so the diligence aspect, I mean, it's so simple for them. It's one process. They log into one account, upload everything. We've heard nothing but great things, and it makes the process so streamlined, so much quicker. And we all know that makes a difference in the sales of the franchise. So knowing that they just have to upload their information one time and they don't have to do it multiple times or in multiple different systems, it's such a great system. And the thing about it is we wanted a system that can be scalable as we grow. Doing it the old way, it was just inefficient. It couldn't be done when we grow to, hundreds of locations. And so the fact that this is scalable, it's compliant, it's structured, it's a huge selling point.
Yeah, it's great.
Now they can get their FDD.
Right.
Say again, Tom?
I said, and now they can get their FDD.
Now we get their FDD,
through
which
the
is
same
again
system.
that perfect transition. I think one of the things I've heard from Tom, and I think I've heard this from long franchise or a long time people in franchising, is build it with the end in mind, right? And so this idea of if you're going to if you anticipate of creating family wealth by getting to a private equity transaction, great, but make sure you put in place the infrastructure to allow you to get to where you want to go to. I know, Tom, you work with a lot of startup brands. And the idea is that you're going to put them on a path that will allow them to achieve that growth, which is something that we think is super important. Nancy, Tom brought us this idea of, all right, well, integrating into the systems. And so I'm going to, kind of maybe share a screen or two where give us maybe the color as to why we went down this road. So share a little bit more. So we have the diligence solution and we also have an application solution. Share the idea of that integration, Nancy.
So this integration allows you to see your candidate's journey from introduction through diligence, application, FDD, all the iterations that occur in their life cycle at the beginning. And it allows you to create the candidate. So this is a sample candidate and a sample brand, but we've created the candidate in this portal. And at any point, you can request the candidate to take that next step. So you may want the application first. You may want, as I learned from Jacqui, that they do the application and the FDD at the same time. And all you have to do is go to actions. And if you scroll down a couple of slides, Mike, you'll see it, and pick the opportunity to select the next task in that franchisee candidate's journey. So again, you can ask for application first, you add co-applicants as necessary, and as they go through the diligence or the application process, what this gives you is full visibility into where they are in the process. They can start and stop it without losing progress. The application takes maybe 5 minutes, the diligence 10, you see their progress through And at the time that you're ready for them to take the next step, this candidate is in your portal. You just go to the Actions tab, request what it is that you want them to do. If it is the diligence, when you do request diligence, a URL is pushed out. The candidate gets an email. They click on it, they begin the process, and the end result is the report that we saw a couple of minutes ago. So it becomes streamlined, efficient, and it gives you as a franchisor visibility into that candidate's journey.
And one of the improvements for any of our clients that are on the call is that the difference is in our current system pre this integration is the candidate would get the Mac, they'd click, they'd get a DocuSign. Anybody who's used DocuSign, their kind of UX is very clunky. So it's kind of hard to tell, like, did they open the email? Did they click it? And, salespeople, there are other CRMs that track that. So that's what we sort of fixed here. I mean, people a lot smarter than me are programmers who kind of dug into the information coming out of DocuSign, and then they feed that over here so that the salesperson can say, hey, I sent them the email. They opened the email. They clicked on the DocuSign. They signed the DocuSign. So it just in that same portal where they're seeing the same thing. Oh, they filled out the application. They opened it, but they didn't fill it out. Oh, they opened the FDD and now it's tagged. And then every time they go back, because, if they're scaling, back to what Jacqui said, if you're doing, lots of deals and you have 20, 30 candidates in your pipeline, you're not necessarily going to remember. Same thing of how we sort of solve the state registrations. I don't want people going back to their emails and digging through and seeing now this is in one spot. They sign the DocuSign. DocuSign tells the BoeFly system that it's been executed. Now the FDD process is done. We have a signed receipt. We have a date. We can go to the next level, which usually is then the due diligence. Now we're taking a deeper dive, marching towards the franchise agreement. So now having that in one spot with real visibility for not only the action taking place, but while the action's taking place, you get all that those pieces on the.
That visibility is important. Jacqui, anything to add to this? I mean, you're obviously in the driver's seat. You've been using the integrated solutions. Anything that you would add to this piece?
I think just saying like how streamlined the entire process is now for the franchisee coming in. It's such a huge impact to them and to Reem, she's our VP of marketing and franchising. It's such a huge impact because we're spending so much less time on, okay, did this email go to the right person? Did this go to the partner? Did this get sent? Did they open it? Did they get it? We can do everything in one place now, and we can go on and check it as often as we'd like.
Makes sense. And I'll say just for a little bit of color, BoeFly, in order to pull the diligence information, the vetting, the liquidity, the criminal background, we need the first name, the last name, the email address, the address, and so it became apparent to us and a lot of our clients is, hey, I'm doing this application, BoeFly, and then I'm asking you to go to your system, do the diligence, to build it into one place. So we're only asking for that one data point once, first name once, last name once, address once, and we're going to use it down the line. And in fact, when we go get the FDD data, or we ask them to complete the FDD, that gets API. The data goes over electronically into the Spadea DocuSign system so that the franchisee doesn't have to type their name again.
We don't want to be that doctor's office where you go into the doctor's office and they hand you a stack of paper on a clipboard and you're like, why am I filling this stuff out again? That is like a massive personal pet peeve of mine. And so as we build processes, that's exactly right. Like, I've already told you my name. I don't want to do that again. So that was one of the things that we're trying to solve there.
Right. So it's all about speed, so efficiency. Let's make it faster and let's avoid redundancies so that your franchisee's process is more seamless. You're putting your time where it's more efficient and you're working with candidates who have the wherewithal to move forward.
Yeah, it also solves a quality problem for us because in our standard system, which, it works, but this is better, you send out the document through a DocuSign and then they have to fill in their name and email. And if they put in a different email, it's not controlled. If they put in a name, now what's happening is it's coming through the candidate portal. Their email is in there. We know that human being exists and they don't have the opportunity to change or edit that email. They get the map, they click the state, and then bang, it's filled out. That's their name, that's their email, and it's tying it back to here. So it just, once again, it takes out just another point of potential friction and error, which, start with the end in mind, when we go to sell to private equity, or we're looking at this, or we're thinking about our general compliance, we have it all tight and buttoned up so that we know the people eventually who sign a franchise agreement, we can go all the way back to the diligence and the FDD.
Helpful. And so, I like where we've gone as far as the conversation where Victoria really was able to, I thought, articulate really well the idea of constructing the FTD is a non-trivial task. It's an annual load. By working with Spadea under the program, you get this much more efficient, less friction workflow, better visibility into where things are. And so I think the Spadea platform really allows that to happen. And then I think the integration, obviously, for those clients that are leveraging the application within BoeFly and the diligence, getting that FTD built right within the solution is just a strong fit. Nancy, we've got a question which I thought is an interesting one. So for years, BoeFly has worked hard to help franchisees with financing. That's good, and a lot of brands know us by saying, "Oh, you're like our friends at ABC Bank or XYZ loan brokerage firm or a Rob's firm." So, and we've got a lot of friends in that industry. Our friends at Apple Pie, Benetrend, FranFund, Guidant, who we've known well and through the years. Question comes in: how is BoeFly different? And it's probably a little bit more of a complex question because there's probably some overlap, but in this area, it's probably not. What are your thoughts, Nancy?
Our focus is on the diligence and the finance. That's really our North Star. And in working with a franchisee candidate on the finance, we support them from the moment they ask to work with us until the loan fund. So whether it's as a direct lender or as a broker, we're helping them put together their loan package. We are helping them write their business plan. We are kind of the cog in the middle of the wheel when it comes to communication with the brand, because we have deep relationships with the brands, and sometimes the lender needs some information from a franchisor, and we help facilitate that. If a bank declines or has questions about a candidate, we are very well positioned. All the information is electronic to pivot to another lender, always thinking about how to keep the process moving forward. And so while there are some similarities, again, our target is how do we get that franchisee diligence? And then how do we help them secure the financing and continue to support the franchisor so they can grow, and they can grow as strong candidates? And everybody has quotas and timelines. So it's not just about getting financing, but it's understanding the candidate's goal for open date, the brand's goal from open date. We have conversations with brands where we share our collaborative pipelines to make sure that what the franchisee candidate is telling the franchisor is identical to what they're telling BoeFly, is identical to the bank. Really bring everybody in line together and make sure that, sorry for the metaphor, but all our oars are in the water rowing in the same direction, because the goal is to open strong candidates on the target date, and that really is our focus.
And so I think it's great, Nancy, very helpful. And so franchisors that have existing and strong lending relationships, can they still use the diligence service, Nancy?
Oh, absolutely. They're not mutually exclusive. So everybody should use the diligence service because it's important to diligence your candidates. And if you have a strong lending relationship, or your candidate has a strong lending relationship, maybe they are a client of a different lender that they had a relationship with, they can use a different service. I will say many people that I work with, it's their first small business loan. They're trying to make it something akin to a mortgage, which is their experience, and it's not the same product. And we really offer the resources to help them. But never do we want to disrupt. Just like Tom doesn't want to disrupt another law firm, we don't want to disrupt a relationship with a lender or a broker and the franchisor ever.
And so if a franchisor says, "Well, I don't need to look at liquidity, Nancy, because I send it over to a lending friend and they tell me that they're financially qualified." What's your thought on that?
My thought is you always have to look at liquidity. Every candidate should be diligenced no matter what, full stop. And it's really important to understand that strength of that franchisee. And in working with BoeFly, it's not just a lender friend, it's a network of lenders. Because while banks have appetites, not every bank has a credit box that fits the franchisee's credit profile. And allowing us to work with them is not just a singular path, but it's a network of lenders, which helps that candidate and creates more optionality and opportunity to get that franchisee candidate funded.
And as a lawyer, I would say trust but verify.
That's fair. I think that's the biggest thing that we, I think face is on letting that franchisor understand where is the financial wherewithal, not just from one lender's point of view, but really from a hard data point of view of this is the information we're getting back. We've looked at the credit report. It's a soft credit pull. That's a point that I know Nancy made, but it's something that we think is probably very important to accentuate is ultimately it's a soft credit pull. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I would also say like, and now obviously we're all thinking about the lending part. We're thinking about that's why we care about the credit score. But let's say you're a service brand. I have a lot of service brands that, maybe it's $100,000 deal and they're not even going to borrow. And so are we just going to skip this process? Because there's a lot of other things here. You want to make sure that they not only have the liquidity, they have the net worth, they have a good credit score. They're not a sex offender. They're not on a global watch list. So I would say that this whole program works. Even if you're not financing the deal, you should go through this due diligence because you're letting someone wear your team colors. And, if you get the wrong person wearing your team jersey, that could do some serious brand damage. So this is just like a brand protection must have on the front end of this process.
I heard a story at multi-unit from a franchisor who said, Mike, I don't know if this is a sales pitch for you guys or not, but we had, we were taking an arbitration from one of our, franchisees, and they said, I didn't have the money to get started, and I pulled out the bVerify report and I showed how much money they had. So I don't know if that's something you think is would come up from time to time, but it struck me
that has happened. I mean, for sure, because we've been on the not fun part of the back end of this. And it's like the craziest claim ever, right? That a franchisee is like, why did you invite me to your party? Like, what are you talking about? You're the one who said you had this money. So that is a very real claim that people make, that they say, oh, we ran out of money because we didn't have enough money. And you're like, but why'd you let us in the system? And to be able to have that third party verified report is a great defense. So absolutely not an uncommon, crazy
I
attack,
know
but it's true.
Victoria and Jackie, you guys never see issues like that. That's never an issue within your system. So we feel great about
You
that.
guys, this is, first of all, I love the system. They're pitching to me right now. I love it. I'm all in. Um, I say all the time, we moved sales in-house recently, but even before they were in-house, a salesperson's job is to make the sale. They are trying to sign a franchisee, and they are also, and I can speak from experience on the franchisor side, on the side that evaluates candidates after they come through for discovery day. The salesperson's also making a sales pitch to me, right, and to our executive team. And a lot of times they'll say, well, this candidate's so great. They have this many brands already, or they've been invested in all of these things. Okay, but to what extent? If you have a 5% ownership of a local McDonald's, saying that you are a owner of a McDonald's, it's not the same. And we get that all the time, and not to hate on our salespeople, but as lawyers, you have to do your due diligence. You have to always look at everything through what's the opposite of rose-colored glasses, because that's what we do. And I love this because it's so easy to paint a really, really good story. It's harder to tell the truth, and I prefer the truth. And this is really incredible, you guys.
One of the things that we hear a lot is, well, or from time to time, if we just onboard a new franchise, or particularly on the emerging side, I say, well, I wouldn't want to put them through the vetting process because they own 20 of X, restaurants. It's like, well, they probably the number one person you should put through, because from a leverage and liquidity standpoint, they may not have any.
Right. How leveraged are they? What's their liquidity? How many partners do they have? Are there partners in state, in the country? Do they have private equity partners? I mean, a million questions.
Totally. I want to, so thank you guys so much. I love hearing your comments, and Tom and Nancy as well. I know we just got a question regarding pricing. We'll get back to you individually. Tom, maybe just a word. This is your fee structure is a flat fee structure. Is that right? So,
Yeah,
or subscription model?
it's a flat subscription model, and then we will carve out a like, if you want us to do the agreements, we can do the agreements for like a separate fee, but it's flat. It's not like an hourly fee. And so, it varies. If someone's in all 50 states and they're changing the FDD and they have, hundreds of units and it's a more complex thing, then it might be a little higher. But it is not, I will say that it is, if it's certainly, it's less costly than doing it hourly with outside counsel, and it is more efficient than even, say, having a paralegal doing it in-house. And a lot of things we hear from brands that are overwhelmed by the workload as they're growing is that, we're not looking to displace anybody, but for sometimes it's like, boy, if I could just free up these hours from this person internally. It's an individual price, but I'm very happy to have that conversation with people. It is not, there will be certainly a cost savings and certainly cost certainty.
And Nancy, you can feel free to speak. I mean, why don't you share how BoeFly charges for that diligent service?
We charge on a consumption basis. It's $210 per report per group. And by group, if Mike and I were partners, it would still be $210. As we go through the diligence, we can't see each other's data points. So that information is not shared to the individual candidates, just back to the franchisor. But it is on that consumption basis for $210.
And by the way, this is not, I wanted to add this is not an extra charge on our side. Like you get, if you're a client of the firm and you pay us monthly, or if you're a current, someone asked the question, if you're a current client of Spadea, what we've done here is basically, if you're a current client of Spadea, we go in, I mean, with Jacqui, we went in and on our internal system, we said, bang, click integrate. You don't pay us any more per month. You pay for both sides, but you become a client of BoeFly, you're a client of Spadea. We just connected on the back end and there's no extra fee for that connection. So if you're a current client of ours and a current client of BoeFly and you're on this webinar and you want us to turn that on, just reach out to me and I'll walk you through it.
Right, exactly. And there are situations. So Nancy mentioned the price is $210 per franchise group. Irrespective of how many counties the person lived in, how many bank accounts we're verifying, we just try to make it as simple as possible for the franchise brand. Some brands have asked us to actually charge the franchise applicant. In that instance, we charge a little bit more just because of the administrative steps involved in that. But we're happy to go ahead and engage with folks who want to learn more for sure. And kind of to that end, I'm going to go ahead and put up this slide, which should be sharing Nancy and Tom's information. We love talking about franchise. We love talking about franchise growth. We love speaking with franchisors who get it. It's rare for us to hold a webinar like this. More often we're talking about some arcane thing in franchising that we're just interested in, that we think the franchisor should be learning about. This obviously is near and dear to our heart. It's not unlike a product demo in that regard, except we're happy to talk about Tom's side and the Spadea side, and I know they are about our side. So we're happy to talk in more detail. We encourage you guys to get in touch with us. But I really want to thank Jacqui and Victoria. You guys are so generous with your time and your perspective and your expertise. Tom, thank you and your team, and Nancy, great job. Thank you for all of you guys for sharing your perspective today. This has been recorded. You will make a copy available to everyone who wants it. And I want to thank you guys very much for joining today. Tom, any last words before you go?
Just make sure you see it's tspadea at spadealaw.com, not .co. But you see the M drop to the other line.
I'm rolled.
The M rolled. So
I'm going to blame PowerPoint. I don't know.
There you go. We'll blame PowerPoint. But no, thanks for this. And there were a couple other questions here for some clients of ours. Feel free to reach out.
Yeah.
We'll clarify anything if you have.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Mike. And thank you, Jacqui and Victoria. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.